Hey everybody, welcome back to the 80s Slashers YouTube channel. In this video, I will be discussing and reviewing the 1982 slasher film Island of Blood. Now, this film is also known as Who Done It. Um, we'll take a look at the alternate cover it and all that stuff. So yeah, a lot of you may know this film as Who Done It, 1982's Who Done It, but I think that's a terrible name, so I've always known this film as Island of Blood. Yeah, so we'll take a look at this film. We'll look at the plot, the setting, the kills, the nudity. We'll take a little deeper dive into the Blu-ray itself before wrapping it all up with some final thoughts. All right, first thing I should mention is that this was this was a first time watch for me. Like I said, I was familiar with this film, just the name. I just known of it for a while, but I had never gotten around to seeing it. So this was my first time watching this, and this is kind of, I guess, like a lesser known film. It's like I said, I've known I've known of it, but it's just kind of a more of an obscure title. Thank goodness, Vinegar Syndrome putting out films like this so we can easily get them, which is great. Like I said, the I like this title. Who done it? Terrible title. That's actually in the credits when the film opens in like the Blu-ray menu and all that stuff. It actually says Who done it. The When it ships from Vinegar Syndrome, it's the cover art and the slip cover is Who done it. So I don't know. Maybe a lot of you know that, but from this point on, we're gonna refer to it as Island of Blood. Now, going into this, I had read some stuff, over the years of what this film was about and whatnot, and I had pretty low expectations because, the response and the reviews is not overly positive for this film. And I'll be honest, luckily for me, I did have low expectations, because I'll just come out and say it. I didn't enjoy this film. Uh, this isn't the It's not the worst made film of all the 80s slashers, you put stuff against like Splatter University and Don't Go in the Woods. Those are a different breed of bad 80s slashers films that I actually like. This is like a decently made film. Uh, Unfortunately for me, the reason I dislike it is it just broke too many rules within the 80s slasher genre, that I just couldn't enjoy it, because of that. And we will discuss exactly what I mean and what it did and didn't do. But before we get into that, let's just take a quick look at the plot. All right, Island of Blood. The plot again, like most of these films, the plot is not too elaborate. The film opens, we see a woman swimming, tanning by a pool, and uh, someone comes out and kills this girl, and that's like the opening credit. There's no explanation. That's just how the film opens. So we're like, okay, and then we cut to the main film, and there is a large group of men and women who are coming to this certain island, to make a movie. We don't really know what kind of movie. There's a little brief description of what kind of movie they're making. It just seems like a random generic movie. They're not making a horror film or nothing like that, or like an adult film. They're just making some random drama kind of thing. There's like a director, there's a producer, and there's a cast, like obviously the cast of actors, and there's some musicians because like part of the movie there's like a band, so they actually hired a couple, two or three musicians to be in the movie as well. There's like a caretaker. We see him on the mainland picking up groceries. He's having conversations with like the sheriff and like people like that, uh, telling them, oh, there's this island out there, and the only thing that's good on it is, there's some buildings and whatnot. There's like a school on the island, some houses. and real estate people are wanting to buy the island, and the caretaker's kind of a cranky old man. He's like, go away and blah blah blah, and I'm bringing out groceries and I'm working there, and like he's like supervisor, he's like the caretaker of the island, and he's overseeing the filmmaking. So that's basically the setup. We get a bunch of different people, um, you know, gathering on this island to make a film. And then, of course, we don't really get much of an explanation. People just start getting killed. And that's one of the issues with this film. But like, we don't really understand why it's happening. People just start, some people disappear, some start getting killed, and slowly, once the large group of people start to realize, it takes a while for them to realize that the people are disappearing and getting killed, and then eventually they realize they get trapped, of course, on an island. They get trapped, and there's nowhere to go, and the killing starts continues until we reach the final conclusion where there's a little twist reveal at the end. So that's it. There's obviously this is just a brief description, but that's kind of the general setup for this film. Um, Now the the main reason I did not enjoy this film, honestly, because it's pretty boring and slow. Um, and for me, that those are like that's like the cardinal sin for a slasher flick. Like we watch these films because we want to be excited, we want to be entertained by chase scenes and like tension and like scary moments and like sex scenes or some TNA and some kills with blood and gore. That's what we watch these films for. Um, I don't watch these films for conversations, dialogue, like, and that's what this movie has. This film needed a lot less talk and more kills and nudity and tension and all that sort of stuff. Um, One of the big reasons I think that it was so boring is because there's a lot of characters in this film, and they talk a lot. There's so many groups. There's like the musicians, there's the actors, there's the director, and the producer. There's like the caretaker, uh, and the actors. There's like five or six, seven actors on the other. There's a lot of people on this island, and we just go from scene to scene of them having conversations with each other, and it's boring. There's just too many of them. Um, and another thing that kind of hurt this film is because there's so many characters. I didn't really care about any of them because we don't spend enough time with them, like any character development or anything like that. They're just all over the place. I didn't even know their names. There was like later in the film, they're like when the tension and like the horror was supposed to be happening. They're like, oh, um, it must be we're talking about blah blah blah. And we're like, oh, all that's left is Jim and whoever. And I'm like, who is Jim? Like I like they were dropping the names. I had no idea who these people were. So I couldn't I couldn't piece together um who these characters were. It's terrible. I'm like, man, like there's literally you no name characters you just did not give a crap about whether they lived or died. And that's you have to either root for some people to get killed or root for people to survive, and there was none of that. It was really too bad. Why was there so many characters? The film called Who Done It. They're trying to make like I think they're kind of going for like one of those Agatha Christie, murder mystery things. And the more characters they have, the harder it is for you to guess. That's what I'm assuming. I don't know. I don't know why. And it didn't really work. Like because like with the reveal and all that, we'll get into that. But if that's what they were going for, they failed in that regard as well. Um, yeah, but besides that, like these characters they were really poorly written. Just like the motivations of some of the stuff they did, and like the decisions they made, they were just really poor. Like even for this genre, we're not, these 80 slashers flicks, you know, th- they make bad decisions. That's part of the charm, but sometimes they're just so implausible. It just kind of takes you out of the story. And like I said, it was just poorly written. Just a lot of the stuff they did, a lot of the things they did, like they're just writing this script, just trying to get people isolated, like alone. and it was just so obvious, like these cheap little attempts, like they know there's a killer on the loose, and like, well, let's separate for some unknown reason, and we don't need lights. Let's just like it's just stuff like that. Like you're just like, come on, like there's better ways to do that in these flicks, and they did not do a good job of just like I said the character motivations. They just let's do this, okay, and it was just stupid and unbelievable and silly. So I don't know. And the last thing I'll say about the acting and is the characters and the acting. 50% I'd say, and, it's probably like 60-70% of the actors were pretty good. Like it didn't seem really amateurish. Like a lot of them were okay. There were a couple actors and some of the leads were bad. There was one dude, man, he was bad. He was really just not a good actor. And it just kind of takes you out of it. But again, for this genre, it's fine, but something to be noted, I guess. Now, besides the bad acting and the questionable characters and all that stuff that we just discussed, um, like a big flaw of this film is just nothing happens. Like like, just nothing that stands out that's memorable. Like in a year's time, I'm not gonna remember much about this film. I'm not gonna remember any specific kills. I'm not gonna remember. It's just there's no highlights. There's no I don't know. It's just not much happens in this film, and like I say, it's boring. It's just I don't know. Like this, it has the structure of an 80s slasher, like the formula, like a large group of people. There was like a prior incident with like the girl at the pool, which it never really gets addressed, but that's the setup. Something that happens there earlier. Someone gets killed. So a prior evil, a bunch of people gather at a certain isolation. Killer starts killing them, guys, girls. It has the structure of an 80s slasher, but not much else, which we'll talk about. We'll talk about what it does and doesn't have. Uh, it's just yeah, I don't know. I just don't think they knew how to make it. Like the filmmakers, I just don't think they knew what was needed or what the audience wanted in an 80s slasher, even though that's clearly what they were going for. Even though it was kind of like the like 80s slasher slash Agatha Christie mystery kind of thing. Um, I don't know. And then when we finally get to the conclusion of the film, again, fairly weak, unmemorable. The final chase sequence is not tense, not exciting. It's kind of weird and awkward, and it's weak. It's a weak final chase scene. The killer, again, just a weak type of killer. No motivation. At the end, there's kind of some revelation, but like as the killer is making the kills and the reasons behind it, we're never really told. It's just the killer comes out of nowhere, and you're just like, okay, why are they doing what they're doing? And we don't really get an answer until like the very end, which is kind of unrelated. It's not great. The final girl, boring, not a good actress, not exciting, didn't like show a lot of terror. It was just the whole performance was kind of flat. Yeah, it just didn't work. It was like the whole ending was just kind of weak and like I said, unspectacular. Like I said, like there at the very end there is like a final like a twist reveal, and it was okay, I guess. It didn't really work for me because it wasn't really plausible. Like when they get the final explanation, it's kind of it's meant to be one of those aha moments, and it is. But when you think about it, you're like, well, ha- it it doesn't work. It didn't fit with the rest of the story because there's certain elements for it to be work to make sense, and you didn't see that throughout the rest of the film. Like it's kind of hard to explain without going into it, but it's I don't know, it didn't really work for me, but it was a good effort. It was kind of a aha moment, but it didn't really work. So I don't know, Island of Blood, kind of a boring film. Like I said, it kind of like it's structured as an 80s slasher, but it just didn't pull it off. So let's get into some of the specifics of exactly what I'm talking about. So let's move on, and we'll talk about the setting. Okay, so Island of Blood. This was made in California, and obviously the main setting is an island. On this island, it seems like it's a bigger island. That's what it feels like. And there's multiple buildings. There's like a school. There's like a outdoor pool, and there's like some house, like some sheds and barns, and like a house, like an old time house, like a really big like house. Um, so that's kind of like the feeling. And there is some scenes on the beach and whatnot, and there's a boat that takes them there and drops them off and whatnot. The issue for me with this is it didn't feel like we're on an island. You watch lots of these films that take place on islands, and they you feel like the characters are on an island, especially when they get trapped and they're like isolated. This film didn't really have that because there wasn't too many scenes shot near like the coast on like the water, like the beach scenes or any on the boat, people trying to like escape the killer and running to the shore and like, oh, what are we gonna do? Um, and trying to figure a way off. Like there was a little bit, there were some conversations. There was one dude who found an outboard motor who was ridiculous, like nailing boards together, like 2x4s, to make a boat to attach to the outboard motor. That was the closest we got, which again, it was silly and implausible. Um, but yeah, it didn't capture the feeling of people being stranded on an island with no escape. It just, I don't know. Again, the filmmakers just kind of missed the opportunity to play around with the shoreline and whatnot. I don't know. So yeah, in terms of the island setting, it didn't really work for me. Um, yeah, it just felt like people wandering through like a regular like just wandering the grounds with houses and a school. It just felt normal. It didn't feel like island life or anything like that. So yeah, nothing terrific. And like I said, it's just nothing memorable. Like, there's like no waterfall scene, no cliffs over like someone getting thrown off cliffs or just what I mean. It's just nothing that stood out that made it feel like you're on an island. Anyway, so that's too bad. The actual like the primary locations was like a big house and like some stuff shot in like a school, and they were all right. They were utilized okay. Like the house, it was a big house, so there was scenes in the basement, the attic, some of the bedrooms, the kitchen. They used the house pretty well, and it was a kind of an older, cool-looking house. Good for a slasher film, I guess. Same with the school. They didn't utilize the school as well as the house, but there were some scenes in like classrooms and hallways and whatnot. So, um, yeah, it was okay. Like I don't know, like the rest of the film, the setting was just a little underwhelming. Nothing really stood out that made you think it's gonna be memorable, especially when it's in the title. I felt like it needed to capture more of that island feel, more isolation, but unfortunately they didn't do that as well. So, all right, that's all I really have to say about the setting, 'cause there's really not too much. So let's move on and talk about the kills. Okay, so Island of Blood has a total of 6 kill scenes. More people died because, like I said, there's a lot of characters. More people did die, but we didn't. They were off screen. So basically, in terms of like the actual kill scenes, there was 6, which is pretty low for a slasher film, in my opinion. I'd like to see up closer to the 10 range. And honestly, there's 6, but it felt like even less for some reason, just because for the most part, most of these kills were fairly tame. They weren't again like the rest of the film. They weren't like standout, memorable. They just kind of happened, and some of them were okay. Some of them we'll talk about it, but yeah, it felt like less than 6. In terms of the pacing, it was okay. They were evenly killed. Like there was one at the beginning, like the very opening credits there. There was a kill, and of course at the end there's kills, and a few of them were sprinkled in the middle. So it was. I think the pacing was okay, but with 6, it still felt like there was big lulls between them, especially when like there was a couple that, like I said, were very tame, like very quick. You didn't see much, so it felt like less than 6. But yeah, Now the kills themselves, most of them used practical effects, but mostly what it was more makeup effects because of the type of kill. There were a couple, two in particular that come to mind. There was one, somebody, which is ridiculous, but they get like a swimming pool, and it's like, I guess the thermostat on the swimming pool was broken. So apparently, a swimming pool can turn. This is an outside swimming pool in the sun, and the thermostat was broken. So it turned into like a scalding hot water, and someone got pushed in the water and they burned to death. And you saw them screaming in pain as their skin was bubbling and peeling off. So apparently, an entire huge outdoor swimming pool can turn into a pot of hot water. Anyway, but yeah, so you saw like the practical effects of the makeup, the burnt skin and it looked good. It did. It looked good. And then there was another scene. Another person was having a shower, and I guess the killer had a big jug of loose battery acid, uh, and they turned on the nozzle and they shot the the battery acid out the shower as the person was having a shower, and they had a acid shower, and they again the skin melting, the burning, and the screaming, and it looked good. It looked good, like all the redness and stuff. It was probably took a lot of time. But again, it was makeup effects. But they were good makeup effects. But yeah, that's the kind of stuff that you got. There was some bladed weapon kills effects. They were really quick, like a quick arrow or a quick little blade, like through an eye or something like that, and you see some blood pour out. Nothing too graphic, like wounds opening up or anything like that. So they were using practical effects, which is good, and they were minimal. Uh, yeah. Now I should say, there was a highlight kill. There was a chainsaw. Someone got killed with a chainsaw, and it was pretty good. It was again, the practical effects were mild for this, but it was pretty good because there was blood spraying everywhere. There was like hands, like you see like the hand flying as it got cut off, and like the body parts were like legs were getting cut off. So it was good. It was fun. It was definitely the highlight. If there was anything that was memorable, uh, in terms of the kills, it would be this one. But for some reason, it still kind of came off as a little bit tame. I guess like when you compare it to something like Pieces, um, the kills with the chainsaw in Pieces is just more visceral, more loud, more you kind of see the blade like cutting, like vibrating as it's cutting through the flesh and bone. You kind of just get like a quick little swipe, and then a body part flies here. So it's fun. It's just not as graphic as something like Pieces, but it was pretty good. So yeah, kills. I don't know. I'm kind of lukewarm on the kills here. It was good variety. Like I said, there was a couple bladed weapons. There was the chainsaw, like I said, and then there was like the scalding, being boiled to death, and like the acid shower. There was some fun stuff. So yeah, if I was to say there was one strength of this film, it would be the kills. It definitely would be the kills. It's definitely the standout in this thing. But they're not the best. So it's y- you take it for what it is. Some decent blood effects, some pretty good makeup effects, and a little bit of gore, but nothing over the top. So I'll give the kills a thumbs up. I guess it's begrudgingly maybe because they just felt tame, but yeah, it's the best you're gonna get out of this film. So all right, let's move on and we'll talk about the nudity. All right, so Island of Blood has zero nudity, nothing, not even really close, to be honest. There was, what you get. There is a couple like bathing suit scenes, like women by the pool or whatever, um, in a bathing suit. So that's some form of titillation, I guess. There is a shower scene, a girl in a wrapped around a towel, and again, you don't. you don't see anything. She gets in the shower, has like the tainted or the glass there, and yeah, there's one sex scene which is really weird. Um, both people in the sex scene are fully clothed, so they're just like hiking up their skirt or whatever. You don't see anything, and they're moving so slow. Like the movements in the sex scene is like so slow. Yeah, it's weird. It's not really a sex scene. It's just I don't know. It's bizarre. So I don't know. Like it's for an 80s slasher, it just felt like they just didn't know how to entertain the audience with this film. It's I don't know. It's just another thing that's kind of adds to the slowness. We watch these films for that sort of thing, like the TNA and the kills, and what we got was just mild and infrequent kills and no TNA, and it's just another thing that kind of just detracts from the quality and the entertainment value in Island of Blood. So I don't know. It's too bad. Like it needed some of these elements that to make it a fun 80s slasher, and it just didn't have it. So let's move on. That's all I really have. There's nothing really much to say about the nudity. So let's move on and we'll take a look at this Blu-ray. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, this was released by Vinegar Syndrome, Island of Blood. I don't know if it's still available, but you were able to buy this with a slipcover, but the slipcover said Who Done It, and that's why I didn't order the slipcover because I didn't want Who Done It. I wanted it to be displayed on my shelf as Island of Blood, so I didn't bother with the slipcover. This is the alternate cover work for Who Done It. There's the chainsaw, and yeah, swimming pool, guy getting boiled to death in a swimming pool. Um, yeah, so I don't like this. I don't like that at all for an 80s slasher. It's a terrible title for 80s slasher. So, but yeah, so anyway, so I ordered it obviously just for this artwork, which is great. This is good. So, but if you like if you know it as Who Done It, you can get that option. Um, Special features. There's basically four interviews on here. And they total just a little over 100 minutes. So it's pretty good. Let's see here, actor, an interview with an actor, interview with an actor, interview with an actress, and an interview with the editor. So I think the editor and the actress they're over 30 minutes each, and the other two are about 15 minutes. Then you get a commentary track with the guys from Hysteria Continues podcast, which is always fun. They always team up with Vinegar Syndrome for these things. Reversible artwork, theatrical trailer, subtitles in newly scanned and restored in 4K from its 35 original negative. Um, this looks really good. It's scanned in 4K. It looks really good. There was a couple scenes at the beginning when like the caretaker is getting groceries and about to get on his boat to go back to the island. It looks like it was filmed yesterday, like in 2022. It looks really crisp and like really clear. It's not like that the whole way through, but that's just an issue with source material. This they did an amazing job. This looks fantastic. I can't. There's nothing wrong with it. There's no issues. No like like you get all those like print damage stuff. Like there's none of that. It's in really good shape. This film. The film print. It looks great. It's really good. Audio sounds fine. Yeah, there's nothing to complain about. This is a great release. Not a great film for an 80s slasher, but yeah, people do like this film, like you go online, there's positive reviews of this. So if you're one of those people who do like this, I definitely recommend getting this Blu-ray. It's the best you're gonna get it at. So it's great, really good package. So yeah, that's all I have on the Blu-ray. Let's wrap this up with some final thoughts. All right, so yeah, I was pretty disappointed with Island of Blood, even even going in with low expectations. Like I said, the biggest issue for me is this is just this. It was just boring. I was bored. This is only like an 80. How long is this? 83 minutes. So not even an hour and a half. And I was checking the time a couple of times. It just was so slow. Um, yeah, you can't make a slasher film that barely has any of the elements that make a slasher film that make the people wanna that we come and watch these films for. It's just yeah, it's like false advertising almost. Like it just really makes for not a fun experience for me. This film had too many random characters just having these useless, pointless conversations that weren't written well to begin with. Some of the actors couldn't deliver the lines very well. Um, and then they were doing like these implausible things throughout the film, just like the motivations was just kind of ridiculous. And then instead of having them run around on this really cool, isolated, abandoned island with some cool set pieces, it was just people in a house walking around having conversations in a house. Like the island wasn't utilized very well at all. I don't think it was filmed on an island, actually. I think it says it was made on like a cove, some cove in California. So they used like the beach and whatnot. Anyway, but they could have made it feel more like trapped on a desert island kind of thing. I don't know. It's just all the stuff that we want from a slasher film. It's just they didn't have it here. The kills were okay. Like if there was, like I said, a standout strength of this film, it's the kills. But even those are just mediocre. But yeah, that I guess that would be the only redeeming quality that this film has, in my opinion. Like I said it before, I just this film feels it just feels like the filmmakers wanted to make a slasher film, but they just didn't know how to do it. And they ended up making this slow, boring film that was pretty clunky at times in its execution. And most of that clunkiness is within like the is within the script. Like some of the poor dialogue that wasn't needed, but it was just really clunky. They're just trying to push the story forward to, like I said, to get like, oh, we need this character to be alone so they can get killed. So it was just this clunky written script just to do this, and it was obvious what they were doing. It just didn't work. It didn't flow very well. The characters' motivations, like most of the stuff they did, made zero sense. It's just, and even the killer, like I said, the killer didn't have a motivation for like the entire time as you're watching the killer make the kills. There's no reason why. You don't know who it is, but then when you find out who it is, it just kind of happened. It's so anticlimactic. You're like, okay, so that's the killer, but why are they doing this? Like there was no like dialogue to explain like, oh, I'm doing this because of this. It just kind of happened like so anticlimactic, and I was like, oh, I guess that's the killer. And I wasn't sure if it was the killer. I'm like, maybe that person's just angry and they think someone else is the killer, so they're defending themselves. They're like, no, that person is the killer, and like it just was not clear. It was really clunky. Um, I don't know, and like I said, and then you get to like the end. There is that the final twist reveal where some of it kind of comes into light, but it doesn't make sense. It's not plausible. It's not when you think back, you're like, well, that couldn't have actually happened because we didn't see this and we didn't see that. It didn't really work for me. So I don't know. As like I said, it was kind of well made. It didn't look terrible, but as a 80s slasher, it just didn't work. It's missing too many of the elements to be enjoyable and entertaining. And at least in my opinion, that's pretty unforgivable within this genre. So that's where I'm at. Unfortunately, I wanted to like this more, but it just didn't have enough going for it. So that's it, everyone. That's my thoughts and review on 1982's Island of Blood. So, do I recommend it? I don't know. Probably not. It's pretty boring watching. If you're a completist and you need it, then yeah, pick it up. It's a great Blu-ray. But yeah, I would not really recommend it for just for if you just want to see a fun time as a slasher. This is not your best option, unfortunately. All right, that's it, everyone. So yeah, until next time. All right, all right. See ya.